Protestant and specifically in evangelical circles, the claim is often made that due to Muslims and Jews' rejection of Jesus as God, that they must consequently be worshiping a different God than the Trinitarian God of the Christians. They'll often ground their claims in verses like John 5:23, quote, "Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him." And 1 John 2:23, "No one who denies the Son has the Father, but whoever confesses the Son has the Father as well." They cite these verses to say, by rejecting Jesus, they have rejected God the Father. Therefore, when they say God, Adonai, or Allah, they are not speaking of the same God that we Christians worship. But not having the Father does not entail referring to a different being. It means lacking true communion with Him apart from the Son. If when Jews and Muslims say God, Yahweh, Adonai, Elohim, or Allah, they mean the one God, the uncreated creator, the God of Abraham, then they're describing the same one God, uncreated creator, God of Abraham, that Christians are when they say God. The referent is the same, although their descriptions may differ. In the mountain illustration, both perspectives render different descriptions of the same intended object. The actual object being referenced is the same regardless of one's knowledge or perception of it. And so, while the southerner may be incorrect in saying the mountain is entirely covered in trees, in light of the truth that the northern side is barren and has a much greater prevalence of snow and ice. That discrepancy does not confirm that the northerner and southerner are speaking of different mountains, especially when they agree on more foundational things like the location and name. Now let's say a pilot was to fly over the mountain and take a photograph, showing the truth of the matter. Either villager could reject the photograph as fake and staunchly hold to their view and deny the truth outright, and yet when they say, "Ol Rocky," they're still referencing the same mountain. In the same way, a rejection of the Incarnation or the Trinity is a rejection of the truth that's been revealed indeed, but does not change the intentional referent. The only way the intentional referent could change would be to redefine the boundaries which the word God is encompassing. For instance, to speak of an impersonal, abstract force rather than the personal and relational God of Abraham would be to deviate from the shared boundaries of what is meant by God. And thereby, at that point, the one speaking of the impersonal, abstract force would indeed be referencing a different God than the Christian God. For instance, if the northerner said, "Hold on, the old Rocky I'm referencing isn't near the coast nor lake at all." Or the southerner was to say, "Now hold on a minute, you think Old Rocky is a mountain? Old Rocky's a range of small hills." Then it would be safe to assume that they're speaking of different mountains or different landforms entirely, since the intended reference is no longer the same. An agreement on God being the one God, the God of Abraham, the uncreated creator, functions as a rigid designator that fixes reference even amid false or conflicting beliefs. Much like the location of the landmass in question and the distinction that the landmass is indeed a mountain, which both parties addresses by a common name, affirms that both the northerner and the southerner are referencing the same thing, however they may disagree on the other details. To put this in another way, both flat earthers and round earthers differ markedly from their understandings of the earth, its shape, its nature, even the universe and solar systems at large, hence the names. However, when a flat earther says Earth, he means the exact same thing that a round earther means when he says Earth. And this is the case regardless of what evidence either side stacks up for the validity of their claim. Either side may very well point out that the other's views are incompatible with reality as they see it, but at no point does this divergence of understanding imply that they have ceased to speak of the same thing when either one says Earth or the world. So what about those verses? According to the Bible, to reject Jesus is to reject God, right? Well, simply put, yes. But to reject Jesus as God doesn't mean that from then on when you say the God of Abraham, you are suddenly referencing another God. The zeal to make the distinction between the Christian understanding of God and the Jewish or Muslim understanding is well-intentioned. It's a stand against a culture of theological relativism and coexist stickers. It's planting a flag, drawing a line in the sand, saying Christ and the Trinity are essential to the faith and are the only right or correct ways to understand God. It's a stand for the fullness of truth, which, while commendable and honorable at the point of intention, it's an overreach that logically speaking cannot carry the weight its proponents intend.